Good morning, nerds. I'm the author of the Descendant Saga, so if you're new here, please subscribe to the channel, check out the links down in the video description, look at my books. I write science fiction, because I'm also a nerd. But I nerd out about a lot of things, not just science fiction and space lasers, but history. I have an unhealthy obsession with airplanes and tanks that are older than my grandparents. Now, I've been playing War Thunder the entire time War Thunder has existed. I remember back when it was just airplanes between United States, Germany, Great Britain, Russia. And then they added tanks, and we're like, oh, wow, this is getting exciting. I've played off and on a lot. There's been years where I haven't played. So, I don't have a whole lot unlocked, relatively speaking, because I've also never given a cent to the snail. Maybe that's why I do so bad. I've got all of rank 1 and 2 US tanks, and I've now broken into rank 3 US planes. And that's where I started with the game, because I'm American, and I have a particular soft spot for the P-47 Thunderbolt. That's why mine is broken and in the shop. And I was busy with college. I didn't play for a couple of years. So when I had time and came back, that was roughly when they added Italy as a faction. Back before we had naval battles. Back when they added Italy. So at the time, Italy had the smallest tech tree. Italy was the fastest path to jets. So I started playing Italy. I have the entire Italian tech tree unlocked. All the way up to jets. I have a couple. Vampire, the budget F-86 we have at home, the MiG-15, the F-84. I'm working on the G-91. Because I know I said I had a soft spot for P-47s. The Thunderbolt is my favorite airplane with a propeller. My favorite airplane with a jet engine is the F-104, because who needs to turn when you can go fast? So, my ultimate goal is to unlock the late model F-104s. But, because I haven't given a cent to the snail, I am a decidedly mid player. In order to make money, in order to afford these expensive jets, as you can see, I've turned off auto repair because I don't want to spend $3,000 for this plane that I flew in one mission 2 weeks ago. I'd rather wait a month for the free repair. Anyway, in order to get more Silver Lions, in order to afford expensive jets, I've started playing Germany. I don't have a whole lot into Germany. What I've been doing for giggles is playing ground RB and then focusing on the aviation of ground RB. So I've kind of min-maxed in this 3.7, because at least statistically speaking, running a 3.7 BR, I'm more likely to get down-tiered than up-tiered. Because the way BRs work, I could, in theory, face anything from 2.7 up to 4.7. You get plus or minus 1 BR. But the way the algorithm is biased, if you play 3.7, you're more likely to fight 3.3 than you are 4.3. Whereas if you played 3.3, you're more likely to fight something higher like a 3.7 or a 4.0 than you are something lower like a 2.7 or a 2.3. Anyway, that's enough talking. I'm sure you're bored and have already left the video. I'm going to edit out the other boring bits. Let's get into some ground RB so I can try and do things with my BF-109 that doesn't have enough ammo because my aim is bad. This particular model of the 109 has the two 7.9mm machine guns in the cowling and a 20mm cannon in each wing. Doesn't sound terrible, except there's only 60 rounds per 20mm. And my aim is bad. Alright. I just unlocked this tank. I have not used it at all. You can see I still have all 10 free repairs. And I'm not going to use it at all. Going straight to the Panzer IV. And we're going to go camp somewhere near the A point so I can get a kill and guarantee lock myself in for that BF-109. At which point I'll be able to drop my 250 kilo bomb and then boom and zoom other planes that are busy ground pounding and not paying attention. And by boom and zoom other planes, I mean one other plane, because then I'll be out of ammo when I have to leave. I'm gonna follow Soviet toaster on tracks, because it's a bigger target. Except he stopped. Alright, we'll keep going. That guy's dead. Alright. I'm gonna use that smoke and artillery to sneak across. There's the tank! Alright. He's out of my line of fire already. We're gonna face armor. And maybe I'll just watch this alleyway. There he comes again. And we're dead. Alright. Instead of the Panzer IVH, I have a Panzer IVJ. I don't know what the difference is between all these submodels. Said I'm used to playing Italian. I don't have all the Italian planes. Just most of them. As you saw. And I don't have nearly as many of the Italian tanks. But I do have more than the German ones. I've got up to 5.7 BR in the Italian tank tree. But that's mostly just through stubbornness. They're, maybe self-loathing. Anyway, Italian things just aren't good. And I've continued playing them because at the time it was the shortest route to jets. And now I have the combination of sunk cost fallacy and my wife is half Italian. So there's that. Need a faster turret rotation speed. Alright, we know he's there. We saw him shoot. And he was faster on the trigger. I was hoping, I knew I wasn't going to make it, but the hope was I could get around the corner before he finished reloading, because we saw him shoot. I want to know how a light tank, I know it's an M24, that's how. I want to know how a light tank manages to pen heavy tank. Let's try again. Now you see why I was saying I'm extremely mid. And turn off auto repairs. Because I can't afford them. I need to save money to finance my jets. Because my backpack has debts. I think personally I do better in close quarters urban maps. So I'm going to go this way. We're going to head for B and then C. You can see down on the bottom my ammo counters. I have 25 standard rounds plus 2 high explosives and 5 high explosive anti-tank rounds. This tank is capable of carrying a lot more than that, and the idea is you don't carry maximum ammo, because then you have maximum ammo. You've got all those ammo bins that are full inside your tank. So if you take a hit and that hit penetrates, it's that much more likely to hit an ammo bin, which will then explode and cook off your whole tank. You're essentially a bomb that moves. Which is why I have some ammo. Enough, but not all of it. and why I have multiple ammo types, and why I only have 2 or 5 rounds of the ammo types and still have most of my ammo invested in the main standard armor-piercing ammo. Alright, B's already capped, because I'm slow, so we're going to go straight to C. Ooh. Helping. See if that spotted anything down there. I am a fan of light tanks or scout vehicles that perform spotting, and I have earned a lot of silver lions just peeking over a hilltop with the binos, spotting bad guys. That's a nice car. That blue, green, turquoise, whatever it is. I'd drive that. With the white top. Oh yeah. Are these modeled after real cars, or are they just kind of cool-looking cars? Like, the things I would do for a 68 CUDA with the 440 and a 6-pack? Brother. Oh, I saw something moving. Fire! Now those guys know he's there. And he is disabled. Load the gun, load the gun, load the gun. Why is it not dead? Why am I dead? We took out his crew. This is the problem I have. Playing American tanks, I feel like the German tanks are unstoppable. Playing German tanks, I feel like the American tanks are way more powerful than they are when I play the American tanks. I think part of this just stems to, like what I was saying about aviation and my aim is bad. I need to work on my shot placement. JU-88A. Oh, he's finally dead. I just got the assist. But hey, there's some points. So if I get a kill here with our Panzer IV-J, I believe this was, I should be able to spawn the 109. I do like these later Panzers that actually have the machine gun on top of the turret, so I can shoot at airplanes. Whereas the earlier tanks, Panzer III, the Panzer IIc, they don't have turrets. You can't shoot at airplanes. And sometimes airplanes need shot at. Panzer IIc with its autocannon, I think is a 20mm cannon that's fed with 10-round stripper clips. That one was good to me because my aim is bad and it gave me lots of shots. So, if you've played War Thunder, if you nerd out about random vehicles and the strange triple-banked engines they put in M4 Shermans, or cool old cars, tell me down in the comments, what tech tree do you play in War Thunder, and how do I make my aim better? Because I feel like it's not necessarily a positioning or a map or a technical knowledge of the game, but just my aim is bad, whether it's in planes or tanks. And, you know, I can ask that question down in the chat, and I have, but everyone just says, oh, get good, or buy a premium plane, or fly a Wyvern. Alright, machine guns are reloaded. There we go. Right through the turret ring, just like I like it. Oh, that was the guy that got me earlier. That's why I got the eye for an eye thing. Screw that guy and his 1 million versions of the M4 Sherman. We have a Panzer, yeah? I don't have... Oh, he got my track. My gun doesn't point far enough up to be able to shoot at the plane. I'm disappointed. And whatever guns he had took out my track. And the belt on that machine gun is empty again. And now because the plane tracked me, I got shot by something, who knows what. I'm just going to pretend that that was the plane again. Now we've got to wait to repair more than just the tracks. Yeah, it was the plane. What the heck are those guns? There's so much I've never seen before. But we got a kill that's enough points for my plane. So now I can do what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm gonna sit in the cockpit here for a sec for the vibes. I really wish, you know, it was easier to actually play the game from the cockpit perspective. I need to get my... I have a VR headset. I need to get that set up. Something at A, I think. I want to drop this 250 kilo bomb before I go harass... There's somebody leaving B. Before I go harass the planes. Like that Tempest that killed me, and whatever that big twin engine thing was. Whoop! Catch. Alright. Is that a B-25? Alright, he's on me. I was hoping I could go take out the B-25 with these 20mm, because the German 20mm belts are fantastic. But no, there's a Mustang. Then again, I did bring a 3.0 rated plane, and the Mustang, as you saw, was 3.7. But I feel like, you know, there's always, whatever move you make, there's always a counter move. For example, you know, I have a BF-109 up, there's a Spitfire. Or a Mustang. Or, you know, I brought a Stug, oh, there's a Sherman. Alright, well, those guys are down. So, let's go back to the Italians. And play some decidedly more mid-tier. Once more, for giggles. The Zrinyi, however we're supposed to say that. The 40/43, that's what I'm calling it. The 40-43. It's a big old 105mm gun. It's not easy to hit stuff with. But boy, does it hit stuff. 120 millimeters of penetration with 2.3 thousand. No, it was just 2.3 kilograms. Sorry, I was reading that as 2.3 thousand, 2.3K. So yeah, it's only 27. That's why we're bringing this ammo. And only a little bit. Not, 50 more rounds. The cope cage on the side here. It's a big old French tank. No, I talk a lot of trash about how bad the Italians are for being an Italian main, and I feel like I'm allowed to because I'm an Italian main. French is so much worse. Like, why does France exist? Their planes were bad. Their tanks were bad. Their doctrine was still set on World War I trenches, and that's why the Blitzkrieg worked so well, because the French command structure was still like, what do you mean they didn't stop and fight at our trench? What do you mean they're behind us? And everything just went into disarray, and nothing happened. I don't know why France got bailed out. Germany conquered that land, and then the United States conquered that land back from Germany. Shouldn't France be the 51st state? Come on, somebody peek this corner. I know you're fighting those guys, but I don't have a turret. Okay, fine. Let's go die. See, like I said, not great for hitting things. Low muzzle velocity, short barrel. But man, when it hits things. Ah! I led him just a little bit too much. Oh look, another tank. Load the gun faster. Can't see squat because my tank is too short. Catch, homie. Except somebody else stole my kill. Brother. Look, another tank. Load the gun, load the gun. Oh, look, somebody shot it. And now I'm a man down. Let's face armor. Since I actually have the gun loaded this time. Catch! I was about to say, I'm amazed I'm still alive. And as I was inhaling to speak, we died. But I got my plane, which has multiple bombs. No 20mm cannons. That's why it's a 2.3 instead of a 3.0. But I at least have a respectable amount of ammunition for each gun. There's the two 12.7s in the cowling and a 7.7 in each wing. That was a popular Italian weapons loadout. Early Italian planes were quirky. We had things like the CR-32 biplanes, because they thought the biplane was good, and at the time it was extremely maneuverable. So a lot of their planes after that, when they were forced to admit that faster planes were better, and we had things like the G50, the standard armament was two 12.7mm machine guns.
Attention to the map.
And that's what they stuck with for a long time in a lot of their fighters. Alright? And, eventually, once they started actually fighting... He's got an engine out. He's going down anyway. Once they started actually fighting other fighters and, you know, making a second generation, he's not going down. Brother, why aren't you dead? You know, they realized they needed more firepower, so they added two 12.7 machine guns that everything had, and then they added two 7.7 machine guns. So you had 4 machine guns, and they were all small. You can't limp back to base. And, I mean, yes, it is technically more firepower, but it's still not great, especially compared to, you know, in an air-to-air engagement, this plane matches up with things like P-36s and P-40s. Late model P-36 has areas. I knew I heard the plane. Like I said, a P-40 that has 6 50 cals, which are 12.7s. Whereas I have 2, and 2 30 cals, which do not equate to a 50 cal, shorter ranged. So they're still outgunned. The other problem is their engines are bad. They're not necessarily bad. They're good engines. They run. In that sense. They're bad is in they don't make a lot of power. You know, the Greta 88, their twin engine light bomber heavy fighter kind of thing, had 2 radial engines that made about 800 horsepower apiece. And that's why the plane's performance was awful. Because its 2 engines made less than the single engine in the P-47 Thunderbolt. Yes, I know the Greta 88 is an older design. But they could have upgraded it. But no, like, they just didn't have better engines to upgrade with. So, that's a big part of their problem. And part of that fed into that was they had this weird thing where they wanted to be like maneuverable dogfighters, like the Japanese planes. But they built their planes, you know, more rugged. They weren't so min-max optimized for lightweight maneuverability like the Japanese planes were. So they weren't as maneuverable as the Japanese planes. And maybe on average, they were more maneuverable than contemporary fighters of the time. They were also on average slower and on average carrying lighter weaponry. And the difference in maneuverability wasn't that big. Especially when you factor in speed and firepower. So, I know I got in trouble once for using the hard R word, but I described Italian fighter planes as Japan's retarded cousin. They wanted to be leaves in the wind, super maneuverable, you know, one-on-one, honorable dogfighting, like the Japanese planes were, when things like the Zero and the Oscar, so on. But they weren't as min-max optimized lightweight for that, so they weren't more maneuverable by a significant enough margin. And especially with the deficiencies in firepower and horsepower. You know, like, to use the Zero as an example, sure, it had 2 30 caliber machine guns. It also had 2 20mm cannons. See if I can shoot him through the wall here. Nope. Reload the gun. Don't shoot me. You're on fire. Your crew's busy. And I didn't pin. I'm surprised I'm not dead. Anyway. So, the niche use case where the Italian planes have the advantage is smaller than the Japanese planes having the advantage, because Japanese planes are always more maneuverable in real life and in the game. And sure, there was tactics later with faster and tougher planes like the P-40, the P-47, the P-38 that overcame that maneuverability. But if that tactic of the boom and zoom was not properly implemented, and you got into a turn fight in your P-38 against the Zero is going to win. And sure, it didn't have a ton of ammo, but it had two 20mm cannons, which was enough firepower to seal the deal, at least in a one-on-one fight, quickly. Whereas the Italian planes have two 50 caliber machine guns, or equivalent, and two 30 caliber machine guns, or equivalent. And it's not until late in the war, where Italy's basically already out of the fight and designing planes, that they realized they had to have more firepower in a big way, so they started putting 20mm cannons on things. And they had to have more horsepower because, a 300 mile an hour top speed is just not okay. Especially in, 1943, when, the whole thing with Sicily was going down. And we had B-51s and B-47s, and all of that. So in order to overcome that advantage, they started putting autocannons and everything, and they used German engines. The good Italian planes had German engines, because Italian engines are garbage. When I'm done with all of this, I'll get you back to the Italian tech tree and show you what I'm talking about. Here we are, Italian planes. Look at that. Two 12.7mm machine guns. This is the one I was just in. Two 12.7mm machine guns with two 7.7mm machine guns. Two 12.7s in their fancy CR-42 top-of-the-line greatest biplane fighter. Which, fun fact, holds the world's last biplane air-to-air kill. Some guy in a P-38 got caught not paying attention and was shot down by a CR-42 Falco. And that was the last time a biplane ever made an air-to-air kill. But look, two 12.7mm machine guns. Here's the G50 I was talking about, and the G50 Series 7. Two 12.7s, two 12.7s. I'm not even going to start talking about the three-engine bombers, because... Alright, I will make a brief comment on their three-engine bombers. Maybe. Look at that thing. It's got three engines. Because their engines are crap, they have to have three engines to get the performance out of two engines. But then they're not getting the performance, to compare. We use a B-25, for example, as a two-engine medium bomber. They have to have three engines to have the same amount of horsepower. But now they have three engines, not two. So it's more weight, more complexity, more maintenance, more expense, more fuel consumption. So they're still not equaling two-engine performance. Alright, here's some, other fighters coming further down the tree. Two 12.7s. Here's where we had 12.7s and two 7.7s. 12.7s, 7.7s. 12.7s, 7.7s. Finally, they're like, oh, we have to, like, make a jump here. And they put in 20 millimeters. 20 millimeters. But, as you can see, 120 rounds, 60 rounds per gun. Same problem I was just complaining about with the 3.0 BF-109 E4. Not enough ammo, partially because my aim is bad, partially because not enough ammo. So later, when they have ground up new designs, so here's one of their original designs that had, let me go to the X-ray, two 12.7mm machine guns. That was their thing. And then as this design evolved, here's how we started. 12.7s, 7.7s. 12.7s, 7.7s. In the 202 and the 205. Now we have the upgraded 205. Well, 202. Excuse me. That had 212s and 220s. And this being later, actually has enough ammo per gun. But because it's using a German engine, it has enough horsepower to carry the weight of that ammo. The earlier versions, if I can throw one in here to look at, I believe when they were still using, see, here's the Italian engine, look at that, 1150, whereas the other one was 14 and change. You know, it's, for math simplicity's sake, 300 horsepower difference. And it wasn't until they started ground up new designs, like the G55 and the G56, using German engines with lots of cannons and enough ammo that they actually had some decent fighters. But the problem is, everyone else's fighters have been advancing too. So by the time they're actually building these things, A, Italy doesn't really exist anymore, and B, now we have later D-model Mustangs, D-model Thunderbolts, that are faster and more maneuverable and longer ranged. Just for giggles, let's send it. So the Italian aviation in World War II was always just one step behind. Because, you know, by the time they had these planes, you know, the G55, the G55 Centauro, the 2005, the G56, that had A, German engines that made enough horsepower, and B, enough cannons and enough ammo for those cannons to be able to end fights. They were too few in number because Italy didn't exist anymore, and outmatched because everything else was still advancing. You know, with my earlier example, in the radial engine plane you just saw me flying with two 12.7s and two 7.7s, you're facing P-36s and P-40s. Whereas the P-40 has 6 50s, and the P-36 has 4 30s and 2 50s, so it's still 6 guns. This big wing here, it does give us a decent rate of climb. Get our gear up. And now we're up to a reasonable speed. Flaps up. Coming up over the end of the runway here. Yep, there's the coolant temp. So I'm going to cut off the web and we'll keep climbing. That's an awfully aggressive climb there, mate. I'm going to make a hard right. Anyway. By the time, you've got these planes in existence, in service. A, not using Italian engines, and B, using the same style 20mm cannons and, the high explosive ammo in those 20mm cannons that the Germans had to be competitive. But that's just it. They're edging into the zone of competitive. It's still not an FW-190, an FW-190, an FW-190, a BF-109, a DO-335. The Anteater is a whole different animal. So, all of the other designs that were good from the beginning, like the FW-190, kept evolving. And by the time this plane was around to do things, we had weird stuff like the Dora and the TA-152 that evolved out of the 190. Why did it center the camera like that? That was weird. I'm trying to look at the 190. Morgan HQ, you're being a perfect example for me. So now that we can see the enemy, this is putting the cork in the bottle of my point. They had a new ground-up design using someone else's engine and weapons so that it was okay. But everything else, like P-51s, there was an F-4U we saw over there briefly, all of those planes kept improving. And now, sure, this plane would be a match for a P-47 Razorback. But now we have P-47Ds, bubble canopies, with cuffs on the propellers so they climb like monsters. Like, there's an F-8F Bearcat. Like, it's still not... Oh, look, Spitfire. There's always a Spitfire. A freaking Leaf with a propeller. You're gonna have a bad time. I apologize for trauma dumping all of my salt from having played the Italian tech tree for so long. Let's see if this Spitfire isn't paying attention. No, my aim is just bad. We both missed each other. Flaps up. Put the weapon back on. See, now 2 turns and the Spit's got the advantage on me. So now I'm going to keep the weapon on and dive, because that's really the only thing I know to combat Spitfires, is they just don't dive as well. So I can out-accelerate him in a dive to create enough space to get away. See, 3/4 of a mile, we're out of range. There's that Bearcat we were talking about. And now that I've had to maneuver to dodge the Bearcat, Spitfire's caught back up to us. Combat flaps, emergency power, and we're about to die. Told you. And see, that's not even a later model Spitfire. It's a Mark V. Yeah, he's got nice 20mm cannons, but he's still got a 3-bladed propeller and the mid-level Merlin engine. This isn't no clipped-wing Griffin-powered menace. So yeah, Italian's just bad. From the ground up. I mean that in a historical sense. Don't take the game or gameplay, too seriously. Anyway, I apologize for the rant. I don't know if it was good for you, but it was good for me. And I'm going to keep grinding. Because I want these F-106s. I need the Speedy Boy. That is my goal in life. That's the reason I play this game. This 12.0 fighter jet. And I'm sure when I get it, I'll be disappointed. Because, like I said earlier, being 12.0 in this example, we will face everything from 11.0 to 13.0. So, Su-23, that's 11. MiG-23, that's 11. MiG-29, there's a 12.7, which is less than 13. I wouldn't want to fight a MiG-29 in F-104. Let's see, what else is in that range. F-4 Phantoms. Look, another Su-22. F-5s. I think we could handle an F-5. We'd be able to outrun that guy. Tornado would not be an easy fight. How are the American planes ranked? The F-5, Phantom 2s, F-4, F-104 versus an A-10. There'd be an interesting match. Look at F-15. At my 12.0, getting up tier to a 12.0 getting up tier to a 13.0. The F-104 versus the F-15. There's a joke. But that's my goal. Not to necessarily get better, per se. Because I know I'm still going to suck. But I want to suck in a fun way at a high tier. We need high-level suck. That's my goal. Anyway, I'll see you there. Grind harder. Snail be with you.